Okay, man, aliens from outer space. They're coming from outer space, and they're gonna come here from outer space, and because they're from other planets in outer space. Or are they? There's some people who don't think so, some serious heavy hitters, and I'm going to talk about them. Jacques Vallée, J. Allen Hynek, and John Keel. And I'm going to make some conclusions at the end. But we're going to talk about the interdimensional hypothesis. And let me tell you a little bit about it. Over the years, more and more researchers into the UFO phenomenon have moved away from the supposition that the objects being seen are interstellar spacecraft and have gravitated to the supposition that they are from other dimensions. In this video, I'm going to try to give a brief overview of the topic as succinctly as I can and show you how this phenomenon is related to various religious and spiritual beliefs. And then, of course, also needs to be prefaced that we don't even know that there's any such thing as UFOs. No one does. Most people believe that, but, most people can be wrong. It might be just a big urban legend, so keep that in mind and take everything with a grain of salt. Take everything with a grain of salt. Okay, let's start with the fellow who probably has the most gravitas in the whole field, Dr. Jacques Vallée. And his scientific career began as a professional astronomer at the Paris Observatory. Vallée co-developed the first computerized map of Mars for NASA in 1963. He later worked on the Network Information Center for the ARPANET. It's what's a precursor to the Internet. So the guy actually helped build the Internet. And as an alternative to the extraterrestrial visitation hypothesis, Vallée has suggested a multidimensional visitation hypothesis. Here, he alleges that extraterrestrials could be potentially from anywhere. The entities could be multidimensional beyond space and time, and thus could coexist with humans and yet remain undetected. Vallée is very well known in the field of UFO research. To give you an idea, Steven Spielberg inserted a character into the movie based on Vallée. This French guy here, next to Dreyfus, was based on him. But let me play you a little video, let you listen to what the man himself had to say about it.
It became clear that the phenomenon could not fit nicely in the four-dimensional physics that we use every day. We started looking at models of parallel universes because we need to account for the fact that witnesses are describing objects that seem to come out of nowhere, seem to disappear on the spot, objects that change shapes in the same way that, for example, a five-dimensional object would go through our four-dimensional universe. That there are multiple universes never came from me. It's an idea that is very popular in physics today. It's a theory, but it's a theory that authorizes the description of the universe at a much higher level of detail and of complexity. Something that
I dig that hat.
Seems to
I want one.
Live in our universe, is capable of interacting with us, is capable also of borrowing some of our images and interacting within our society. The approach is to think of the UFO phenomenon as a display, as if the phenomenon was displaying itself, was exhibiting images that in part come from the background or from the consciousness of the observer.
Anyway, the old boy, he listed 5 reasons upon which to base his conclusions, his concept. So I'll read them off here. Unexplained close encounters are far more numerous than required for any physical survey of the Earth. So it doesn't seem like they could just be coming here just to take a look. And this next one is the most compelling to me. The humanoid body structure of the alleged aliens is not likely to have originated on another planet and is not biologically adapted to space travel. So, in essence, if life evolved on other planets, why would they look like us? Why would they have arms and a head and legs and what have you? And yet all the encounters and cases people study, that's what they look like. The reported behavior in thousands of abduction reports contradicts the hypothesis of genetic or scientific experimentation on humans as by an advanced race. The extension of the phenomenon throughout recorded human history demonstrates that UFOs are not a contemporary phenomenon, and they're not. They've been around. I mean, just look at the various holy books people throw around all over the place. And the apparent ability of UFOs to manipulate space and time suggests radically different and richer alternatives. Okay, the fella, he's written several books on the topic, but the one that I thought that was the most pertinent to the topic at hand is Messengers of Deception. And I'll preface that by playing a little video of what the man had to say.
The UFO phenomenon didn't really start in 1947. We have many sightings from during the war, before the war, in the 19th century, and going back as far as we have records. And in that regard, I've been especially fascinated by the possible parallel between UFO sightings and folklore. If you think of the Wingina drawings, for example, in Australia, if you think of similar cave drawings from China to the Sahara, if you think of the Celtic traditions in Brittany, in the Celtic countries, if you think of the American Indian folklore, all of those have certain common preoccupations with beings coming from the sky, beings wearing some sort of suit, beings, the whole mythology of contact between men and another culture, possibly coming from space.
Anyway, the evidence Jacques Vallée reveals after many years of scientific investigation adds up to something more menacing than monsters from outer space. And in Messengers of Deception, talked about the growing effect of UFO contact claims on our lives and of the belief systems in our society. It's affecting our very psyche, our perception of reality. But anyway, Vallée is one of the first people to speculate publicly about the possibility that the solar dance at Fatima was a UFO. Vallée has also speculated that UFO activity may have caused other religious apparitions, including Our Lady of Lourdes and the revelations of Joseph Smith or Muhammad or Moses, etc. Vallée believes that religious experiences such as these should be studied outside of their religious contexts, which makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, J. Allen Hynek is next, and he's pretty heavy hitter in the field, or he was. He's dead now, but there he is with Mr. Vallée standing there. He had a PhD in astrophysics, and he was an astronomer who served as a scientific advisor to the U.S. Air Force UFO Studies, Project Sign, Project Grudge, and Project Blue Book. Hynek pioneered the close encounter classification system. Hynek had a cameo in Steven Spielberg's film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So he was in it. There's a scene there where he's standing there smoking his pipe and everything, just like he is in that picture there. Close Encounters of the First Kind, Second Kind. He made that up. I remember reading that book when I was like 12, 50 years ago. But anyway, he theorized there could be a universe with different quantum rules or vibration rates. Our own space-time continuum could be a cross-section through a universe with many more dimensions. Think what a hard time you would have convincing an aborigine that right now through this room TV pictures are passing. Yet they're here. you have to have a transducer to see them, namely a TV set. Well, in the same sense, there may be interlocking universes right here. We have this idea of space. We always think of another universe being somewhere else, but it may not be. It might be right here where we are. Next up is probably the least credentialed fellow on the video, named John Keel. He was a journalist and writer who wrote scripts for many television shows, including The Monkees and Lost in Space. But when Playboy once asked him to write an article about UFOs, he became obsessed with the topic and pursued it the rest of his life. In UFOs Operation Trojan Horse and The Eighth Tower, Keel argues that a non-human or spiritual intelligence source has staged whole events over a long period of time in order to propagate and reinforce certain erroneous belief systems. For example, monsters, ghosts, demons, and by implication, religion itself, I suppose. Notice the independent confirmation from Mr. Valle where he talked about ghosts and fairies being attributed to this phenomenon, these so-called creatures. Okay, next I'm going to move on to Dr. Carla Turner in conclusion. In her book, Masquerade of Angels, she wrote of what she learned in hundreds of abduction cases she studied. And you know, you can't find this woman anymore, really hardly on the internet. You used to be able to find her on YouTube and find a lot of extensive lectures and speeches she'd given, but they're all gone now. You can find some on Rumble, some on BitChute, but mostly they're just all gone. But anyway, she concluded something that most people just don't think of. She concluded that they're criminals. Think about it. They kidnap people. They torture people. They perform medical experiments on people without their consent. Hybridization experiments that supposedly are trying to create a crossbreed between us and them. They lie. They impersonate religious figures. She said every single thing about them that she studied implied that they're deceiving us, that they're liars, and that they have an agenda that really you just don't know. My personal suspicion, and this is just my personal suspicion, it's personal, is that they're implementing the hybridization program in order for them to come into our dimension permanently rather than temporarily. If they can hybridize themselves with us, they can go in, enter one of the bodies, and live here permanently. Now, why they would want to do that, I don't know. All evidence suggests they can't stay here permanently. They can only stay here temporarily. Think of the Nephilim in the Bible, that story about the genetically engineered people. But anyway, that's just my take on it. But in conclusion, you know, they do things that can't be explained physically. They move through walls. They speak telepathically. They materialize and dematerialize. And they always plug a socio-religious agenda. And it's always the same one, a collectivist agenda like we're always seeing in the media, one that demands people surrender their individuality. Surrender it to a collective state. Let the collective absorb their individuality. So anyway, that's really about it. But approach this topic, and religion too, with extreme skepticism and caution, because everyone always has an agenda. They always do. Always take everything with a grain of salt. And with that, I'll conclude. If you liked it, give me a like and subscribe so that more people can see my stuff. And adios. Bye.